Hello and welcome to Dark Jedi Reviews. So today I'll be reviewing M.O.D.O.K, which is a Hulu show, which just finished airing on Disney Plus actually. I don't have Hulu myself, so I'll be watching it on there. This video will be unscripted. I just wanted to make like a quick video for like Friday, because that's my normal like upload day. But since I didn't have like a big project in the works, apart from my Terminator ranking, my Jaws videos, and then I have Revenge of the Sith review, but they're not all done yet, so today I'll just be talking about M.O.D.O.K. And M.O.D.O.K is a Hulu original, if you didn't know, and Disney acquired the rights somehow. I'm not really sure how that works, but I didn't because it's Marvel, and don't think they actually own the rights to M.O.D.O.K, but I don't really know. I don't know much about the details, but yeah. So it's a Hulu original. It just finished airing on Disney Plus. They've been doing it weekly, and they have all 10 episodes out now, and it's been 10, yeah, so that's quite a lot. And I know most people probably want me to do the Loki review now. I'm not going to, because everyone's already doing that. But I'll probably do that next week. I don't know. But yeah, I have some in-depth thoughts on episodes 4 and 6 of Loki. But yeah, so I'm going to be doing each episode individually, since this is my first series review. This is how I do them. I do each episode individually. I score each episode, and then at the end I'll give the show a little review, and then I'll just give the show as a whole a score. Alright, so let's get into episode 1 of M.O.D.O.K. So we shall begin with M.O.D.O.K episode 1, If This Be M.O.D.O.K. This episode's 27 minutes long, so it's fairly long compared to the rest of the show. Some episodes are longer. There's one that's 30 minutes, I believe, but this is still quite long. Most of the episodes are only about 25 to 23 minutes, so they're not that long. But yeah, so this episode introduces all the characters, obviously. It introduces the divorce thing with M.O.D.O.K and his wife. It introduces all the side characters we'll be getting to know, like Larry, one of those, I forgot what the name is, but yeah, there's that robot thing. I don't even know what the name is for that scientist person who works with M.O.D.O.K, but I know that she exists, I guess. Veronica, I think it is. She's also has a daughter, which will come up in later seasons more. Well, not later seasons, or later episodes more. But yeah, so this episode is a very much set-up episode for things to come. It's a pretty fun, entertaining episode. The opening is the best part, for sure. It starts with a sentimental scene, almost, which is a bit strange for a comedy show, but yeah, I let it slide because I don't mind sentimental scenes every once in a while for like shows like this. And then we get into the comedy, and the comedy is really funny, at least in my opinion. At least for this episode, because episode 2 is some really bad comedy, and it's just not funny. This episode is what I think this show works best, when it kind of like, it just, like, its comedy is just aimed at like Marvel as a whole. Because some of the Marvel comics are really just ridiculous. Like, I mean, even look at M.O.D.O.K himself, he's just a guy with a big head. At least compared to like DC and stuff like, and 2000 AD and all that. Compared to those, they are a lot more silly. But, it's fun to just play with that for a bit. And most of the episodes, especially 1 and 4, deal with that. And those are that's my favourite kind of comedy. So those are my favourite comedy episodes. This one in particular, the opening is the funniest part probably. After the sentimental bit, M.O.D.O.K as a child, we get thrust into the action, and Iron Man is there, and he's just like fighting M.O.D.O.K. It's very funny. And yeah, also this is a Robot Chicken show, so obviously it is funny because Robot Chicken people work on this, and Robot Chicken is a very funny show. Anyway, yeah. So overall, episode 1's a pretty good start off, and I will give episode 1 a 7 out of 10. M.O.D.O.K episode 2 I actually dislike a lot more than episode 1. I gave episode 1 a 7 out of 10. This one I wouldn't give so high. I don't think it's very funny. The jokes don't really land for most of the episode for me, because it just kind of does just generic jokes from like sitcoms and stuff, and like I might be parodying them, but it does them too. Just like, it feels more like just generic stuff instead of parodying the generic stuff. It just feels like they're having it. It's like when films are like self-aware and they're like, this plot makes no sense, our plot makes no sense. It doesn't change the fact that the plot makes no sense. So yeah, same with this, kind of parodying them, but doesn't like change the fact they have them in the script. Other than that, it's a very forgettable episode. They go back in time. It does set up the villain of the series, well, one of the 2 villains. And this one is he's kind of a I don't know how to describe this one. He's like a kind of he's an alternate universe M.O.D.O.K essentially. But before that he was young M.O.D.O.K, and so he got some crystals in him, and he's just there now. But So yeah, this episode is significantly weaker than the first one. Not bad. Well, it's mediocre for sure. The comedy isn't very good, but it's never bored me. I never really got bored, but it is my least favorite of all the episodes, easily. And I give it a 5.5 out of 10. So M.O.D.O.K episode 3 now. Beware what from Portal comes, I think it's called. So this one is a significant improvement over the last one. However, it's still not as good as the first one. And has some issues with pacing and just kind of tone. A lot of they all feel different, a lot of the sequences, but they're all in the same episode, so it doesn't really work well. Something I would applaud the Bar Mitzvah Wars for is the fact that it feels like one contained story. This feels like a bunch of jumbled ones. It's very the alien people that party and stuff to people to death are introduced very late in the story, so it does feel like 3 kind of episodes mashed together. It is significantly better than the second episode because the comedy is actually funny. It's again directed at Marvel stuff, since their stuff it's fairly silly. Let's be honest. Their stuff is very silly at times, and it's funny just to see comedy directed at that. And that's my favourite parts of this series. So episode 3 will get a 6.5 out of 10. Okay, so next is episode 4, or rather, If Saturday Be for the Boys, which is what it's called. This one is my favourite so far of the first 4. It's quite good, it's quite funny. It is very funny, actually. It kind of shows off the fact that some, you got Hobgoblin is nowhere near as good as the Grey Goblin. This one shows all those kind of rejects, like that. Like, they have loads of different villains here from Marvel history, and it was very funny to watch. Anyway, so M.O.D.O.K teamed up with a bunch of these low-level villains to try and get to a high-level villain. It has a bit of an emotional ending, which is surprising, but, it was interesting to see that in a comedy show. But overall, it was one of the better episodes of the series, I would say. So I will give this episode a 8. Actually, no, sorry, a 7.5 out of 10. So next is episode 5, If Bureaucracy Be by Thy Death. It's okay. It's very mediocre. Some of the stuff in it was interesting, but for the most part it is kind of just okay. It's got a lot of tie-ins to the Marvel films, and I'm not sure if I like that so much because of the fact this is meant to be parodying them and not advertising them. But having said that, it's not the worst episode of the show. It's fine. It's a lot better than episode 2, and it's a lot better than the other episode that I don't like, which I'll get to when I get to it. So I didn't mind it so much. Maybe it's not the best episode, but I can watch it and it's fine. But the jokes aren't as funny as episode 4 or even episode 3. Not as funny at episode 1 either. But they are a lot better than episode 2, if not great. Anyway, so I'll give this episode a 6.5 out of 10, same as I gave episode 3. So next we get to episode 6, my second favourite episode of the show. Episode 6 is a very entertaining episode. It's self-contained too, so it's not as set-up-y as some of the other ones, or just payoff-y as some of the other ones. Even though my favourite episode is a big payoff, I don't really mind. This one is a very good episode. This one it's very funny, obviously. Lou is a very funny character in my opinion. Just he's generic, but he's funny. And he's a bit different than generic because he has certain elements about him that make him different. But I found him entertaining in this episode. Not to mention M.O.D.O.K himself. And I find it funny how they both start a war against each other. I also like how they parody Asgard. as a whole, and like he has like a bin leading to Asgard. I thought that was hilarious. But yeah, so Asgard is a bit of a like a it's kind of dumb, but I mean I know it's from Norse mythology, but they did change it a lot in the movie. Like even in Thor and like Thor: The Dark World, it is a bit strange. In Ragnarok, they realized that it's a bit of a weird place where people speak in like Shakespearean and all that, even though they're meant to be super advanced. So yeah, they play on that a lot. Overall, I like this episode a lot. Now, it isn't the best episode because there's one or two pacing issues, but only for the first like 5 or 6 minutes. But other than that, it was quite entertaining. I will give it a 7.9 out of 10, and my second favourite episode. Okay, so M.O.D.O.K episode 7, This Man, This Makeover, is a decent episode. Not the worst, not the best. It's better than some of the episodes so far. It's better than like 3 level. I think Wonder Man's very entertaining in it, obviously. And Jodie has gone through a pivotal character, like, turnaround. Obviously Wonder Man's entertaining. It was funny to see like a wanting member of the Avengers, and Wonder Man is perfect for that. Other than that, though, there are some issues with this script-wise, because I don't think like I get it's a comedy show, and you're not really meant to pick apart this stuff. But just saying, like Jodie she's very changed, and it's taken like 1 episode to change her this much, and I don't think that's the right amount of time. I think it should have just been stretched out a little. I mean, they didn't. I mean, 10 episodes is quite a lot, but they could have cut out a couple. They could have just attached the end of episode 10 on. They could have just attached some of episode 10 onto the end of episode 9, but not the worst. I can't really dislike it because it is quite funny. It is obviously this is a comedy series at heart, even though it does have a pretty pivotal story. So I like it, but I don't love this one. I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10, and it's good, but I wouldn't get your hopes up too high for this one, even though Wonder Man's in it. And for those fans of him, he's not treated well. Like, if you mean, like, he's treated seriously, he's not. M.O.D.O.K episode 8, Oh We're Blood, Thicker Than Robot Juice, is my personal favourite episode. It's not the best, plot-wise, but I think that it's the most entertaining episode. Most fast-paced, for sure, and it's the most comedic episode. Even though it is a lot of payoff, actually. But the villain of this episode is obviously young M.O.D.O.K. He's come back now. He's been looming since the second episode when he was introduced. And yeah, so I enjoyed this one a lot. Obviously, it is my favourite, easily, of the series, and I think it's great. But there is a couple of problems, though, I do have with it. To start off, there's a lot of new characters introduced for, like, a payoff episode, but, a lot of shows do that sometimes. Like, even in the Rise of Skywalker, I don't like the Rise of Skywalker, but in that, this is just an example. It does have that kind of thing. But, yeah. Overall, I love this episode, like, a lot. It is my favourite. It got me excited for the rest of the show. Obviously, there's only 2 episodes left. But even if there were season 2, it got me excited. Now, another episode, I'm not going to tell you which one, 9 or 10, until you see it later, got me really downgraded from the rest of the show. I didn't want to see season 2 at all. Okay, anyway, yeah, so I'll give this one a 8 out of 10. It's a very good episode. It's very funny. If you're going to watch a show, you could just watch this one and you'd probably be entertained enough. You will probably have to watch episode 2 to just go set up. It's not a very good episode 2, but don't take that into account when watching this one. It's a lot better, just like on its own. Oh yeah, it also is a bit of a standalone episode, but it does have some payoffs as well, especially with the villain. And yeah, it's basically a payoff episode. Episode 9 is another one of my favourite episodes. This one is great. This one is great. But there's one thing with it. So yeah, there's one issue. The board, or the man, I forget what their name is even. They're too generic for my liking. I mean, I get it's a comedy show, so obviously they're gonna have like Thanos or like I don't know, Darth Vader in the show. It's a comedy show. That's not what it's intending to do. So other than that, this is a blast of an episode. I really enjoy, like, just the humour is funny. Very funny, especially with Austin, who just gets what he deserves for leaving the rest of humanity behind, essentially. Yeah, I found it very funny. Good episode, overall. I thought it was entertaining to see the bad guy obviously get his comeuppance. And then we obviously have the Iron Man takeover. It's a bit abrupt, but I don't really mind, considering, you know, it's just a comedy series, and obviously they had to wrap it up. So as long as some of the other ones, but yeah. Entertaining and very good. I will give this a 7.5 out of 10. So you guessed it, I said I didn't like one more episode in the series, and this is the one. Days of Future M.O.D.Oks I don't like. It's a setup for the next series, and that's mostly it, but, you know, it does have some other stuff. So I don't hate this one as much because it does have some interesting ideas. And I know a lot of people despise the ending of this episode. I don't really. I don't like how it's setting up another season and didn't just wrap up this one. I'd prefer if this was like a second last episode. They had one more, which has wrapped up the series completely. I know they're not going to do that because they need a second series. If this just doesn't get a second series, though, I will be very disappointed by the end of that episode. But yeah, season 1, episode 10, Days of Future M.O.D.Oks. So it's very boring for the first half. Like, I mean, I was bored by this episode, and other than episode 2, that's the only one I've been bored by. The jokes weren't that funny, really. There were some emotional bits that worked a little in the first half. But other than that, no. And then the second half's a little better. Second half has, there's one thing I don't like about it, though. I don't see why young M.O.D.O returns again. I don't like that. I don't know, I prefer that he died in episode 8, and that was just done from there. This was just a payoff epilogue episode more so. Because the 8 and 9 done the arcs of everything. That's disappointing, if I'm going to be honest. However, I guess it's, you know, it's not the worst thing that's ever happened to TV. It's not the worst episode of a show ever, or anything like that. It's watchable. But the second half is, after he comes back, it gets progressively better. And yeah, it sets up a second season. It's very set-up-y, but at least it wasn't boring like the first half was. There was some really good emotional beats in very small bits, and if I were just to rate those little, like the second half would be a lot higher than the first half, but mixing them together makes a very mediocre rating of also 5.5 as well. So yeah, I do prefer this one over episode 2, but they have the same rating because I can't really, in good conscience, rate this one higher, considering it has a far worse like payoffs and stuff. It's not a good payoff episode, considering it's the last in the series. It does leave a bad taste in your mouth from the show, but you never know. Maybe season 2 will be an improvement. I do hope so. But overall, that was an okay episode. This show overall was fairly funny. At times it had some really good emotional beats as well. However, I think the large portion of the episodes are mediocre. It does get better in the second half until episode 10 kind of lets you down. You got as soon as Saturday Be for the Boys comes out, the rest of them get progressively better and better. Yeah, sure, this makeover is a bit mediocre, but it's nowhere near as bad as Days of Future M.O.D.Oks. So yeah, overall, it's a mixed bag for sure. First 3 episodes are fine, but they're not great. Episode 1 is the best of the first 3. And then after Saturday for the Boys, they get progressively better, apart from this makeover and obviously Days of Future M.O.D.Oks. But I can't really say it's the best Marvel show ever or anything like that. Like, IGN said it might be like the best Marvel show of 2021. I have to disagree with that, because it's not that good. I mean, WandaVision is, maybe Loki, I don't really know. It's tied between them basically. But this one doesn't really compete. It's a fun little thing to watch for 10 episodes. I hope it gets a second series so I can figure out what happens next, because I'm interested in the story and I do want to see the stuff that got set up in the finale get paid off. The finale is actually quite similar to Loki's finale. Even I think Loki handled its setup better though, because it didn't just set up that next series, it set up the rest of the MCU. This has nothing really to do with that. and had more of an exciting impact. This one didn't. But, you know, maybe season 2 will be an improvement, but for season 1, I will give it a 7.5 out of 10. Thanks for watching. So, some videos I got in the works are obviously my Revenge of the Sith review. I have my, Jaws sequels video. And I have my, Terminator ranking. I have a couple other videos I was thinking of doing, obviously Loki. I might do another one like this, depending on how well this one performs. An unscripted one, or if this one doesn't do too well, I'll just make a scripted one and do that. But overall, I'm not doing that much new videos. I will be taking longer breaks now. I probably won't be doing every Friday. There's just a Friday after the one I did, my Terminator Salvation video. That took 3 weeks to make, so yeah. Some of these might take long. Hopefully they won't take too long. Hopefully not 3 weeks, but it could take 1 to 2 weeks, so it probably won't be every Friday. But if I do try to upload, I will try to upload on Friday or close to Friday, Thursday or Saturday or something. Anyway, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. See you in the next video.